Hello and a warm welcome to HW News Network, your one-stop show, truth be told, for some engaging and thought-provoking conversations. Pahalgam incident took place on 22nd of April, where so many lives were lost. But if you talk about the kind of losses which India suffered in terms of the military infrastructure, in terms of the losses of lives, the government is quite tight-lipped. They would not want to talk about as to what is the kind of loss which India has suffered during Operation Sindoor. And the moment you ask these questions, what are those people labeled as? They are labeled as people who are speaking the voice of Pakistan. It's a known fact, and many international newspapers and websites have reported that this time during Operation Sindoor, how China and Pakistan got together and they tried to overpower India in the first round. That is what is being discussed. And that is also an element of surprise, and which is why so many questions are being raised on the Indian soil as well by the opposition. Rahul Gandhi continuously is raising these questions as to why the ceasefire happened, why did Trump mediate, and if Trump mediated, why is Modi silent over all this? But the new force of, the joint force of China and Pakistan, how can it really become a great risk for India? We'll try and understand all of this. And as we speak, the multi-party delegations are still abroad and they're about to return back to India anytime. So there'll be a lot of questions. And of course, those questions as to if after the Kargil war, if there was a Kargil committee which was formed to take into consideration the reasons why the Kargil war took place and what went wrong. So why is there no committee so far constituted by the Modi government? Joining me this evening is Pravin Sawhney, who's a renowned defense expert. Thank you so much for joining, Mr. Sawhney. And you've seen Mr. Sawhney on various video platforms speaking on this particular issue. Thank you so much, sir, for joining. And my first question to you is that lot has been said and lot has been discussed about Operation Sindoor. But from your lens, what is the most startling fact which you see and would want to analyze that bit as part of the Operation Sindoor?
See, the first thing is that the Indian side didn't really realize that they were up against not Pakistan, but Pakistan and China. So that's the thing. And as a consequence of that, I believe that the Indian response to the Pahalgam massacre was disproportionate. Now, this is very important. What this means is that they did the proxy war, we lost lives in Pahalgam, so this is terrorism. Terrorism is what we call the sub-conventional operations. And as a response, what we did is we went completely overboard and we did the conventional operations, and that too at the high end. Because when you use air power, and especially between India and Pakistan in the next war, air power will be the leading element of war. So the second point that I want to make is disproportionate is very important, because to their terrorism, we responded with the high end of conventional war. So people around the world understand all these things. That's the second point. The third point is that there is no doubt about it that in the air war, as far as this combination was concerned of China and Pakistan in terms of weapon systems, their J-10 and the PL-15 missile, it did a very good job. And this is perhaps the reason that the Chief of Defense Staff, General Anil Chauhan, hesitates to give out the numbers of the aircraft which have been shot down. You see, when he spoke to the Bloomberg journalist, he said, I don't want to put the number, conceding that yes, aircraft have gone down. You see, so if it was only one aircraft, he would have conceded it. So, but we have to also see what has happened is It could not have been
So,
this one aircraft.
allow me to interrupt you. In your view, which means that there are more than one fighter jets or aircrafts which were downed by the combined power of China and Pakistan.
Yes, because I'll give you the reasons for that. The reason is, if it was only, and in my assessment, this combination did very well of J10 and PL-15, which is the reason that today Indonesia also is considering seriously of buying the J10. Then we also saw that after that night, which is the sixth, seventh night, we saw that the stock of the makers or the manufacturers of J10, which is the Chengdu Aerospace Corporation, it shot up. Now, all these things don't happen if there is only one aircraft which has come down. And the reason is very obvious why the CDS doesn't want to accept the losses is because if he accepts that, then he's also accepting, which is a very dangerous thing, the limitations of the Indian Air Force. And when I say limitations, please understand this is for the benefit of your viewers, because what we are talking about here are the BVRs, beyond visual range missiles. Now, beyond visual range missile, which fire at a very long range, what is important is the digital ecosystem which is backing them. There is a huge digital ecosystem that backs them. If you remember, there was a briefing given by the Pakistan Air Force officer, Air Marshal Aurangzeb Ahmed, to the international press, where he said that now the Pakistan Air Force has got a new warfighting doctrine, which he called multi-domain operations. Now, what that means is that is the digital ecosystem, and that comprises of, you have your satellites, you have your airborne assets, you have your ground assets, you have your fighters, and everything is linked with their link 17. Now, so when you have a fighter which is firing a BBR, then there is an ecosystem which is helping him. So if there are more kills on the Indian side, it would mean that the ecosystem of the other side was better. An ecosystem takes many years to build. It's not only putting together, it's about professional training. So I'm just giving you the reasoning behind all this. This is my thinking that all this would not have happened. Indonesia wanting to buy them, stocks going up, if there was only one aircraft. But as when the Bloomberg journalist asked the CDS that did 6 aircraft come down, he says, no, it is not that. So we accept the CDS point of view here, but certainly it was more than one.
No, but the manner in which the Chief of Defense Staff was trolled later on by the right-wing army, the troll army, it almost looked like he had blundered. So would you look at it as a blunder, or it was an honest confession, or it was a media narrative which BJP apparently, or the government, if I may say, couldn't manage?
See, the point is that they had to accept something, because this is the start point. Because as far as the Pakistan side was concerned, they gave the briefing within 48 hours to the international media. And after that, the entire international media knew what's going on. The Americans knew what is going on. Chinese knew what is going on. See, this is not the age of commercial satellites, what CDS said, that we'll have the commercial side. This is the age of real-time intelligence by satellites. And the Chinese have those capabilities. So what went down is known to everybody except our own people. So at some stage, for the credibility of India, they had to accept something. So he accepted that. Now, obviously, it's a narrative which is not helpful for the image of the government. But the point here is that the government should have, first of all, thought about it, that this disproportionate response, is it helping us? Now, this is important. On the one hand, it was disproportionate response, and on the other hand, if the political objective was to end the proxy war of Pakistan, I don't think that has been accomplished. If the military aim was to create a deterrence against the Pakistan military, it has not been accomplished. And the most important thing is, we earlier also used the air power, which was in 2019 Balakot air attacks. Then also the limitations of our air force were exposed. Now they are further exposed. So what are we getting out of it? Only the government knows that. I mean, I can't answer that part.
No, obviously, and everybody is at pains to understand that what is going wrong with the air power of India. Are we not working enough? Well, we do not have the wherewithal, we do not have the technological capacity, or we do not have the political will. What has really gone wrong with all the big talks
See,
which
I
Modi government
yeah.
does?
See, the point, see, I can't answer that question. I can only give you my assessment of the whole question. What is going on is, in my assessment, that when the Prime Minister came to power in May of 2014, that is the time the Air Force Chief was with the name of Air Chief Marshal Arup Raha. And since then, the Air Force has been seeking a sub conventional role for the Air Force. You see that you also want to, because the army is doing a sub-conventional role. So starting from Arup Raha, all the Air Force chiefs have been wanting a sub-conventional role, that Air Force should be used in this role, which is wrong, because we are talking of a modern war here. On the other hand, we did not understand a very simple thing, that right from 5th August 2019, when we revoked 370 and 35A from Jammu and Kashmir, Chinese leadership has been consistently saying at all the levels that we will support Pakistan's sovereignty and security. What that means is that the two militaries, the PLA and the Pakistan military, had actually started intensive exercises, which is joint exercises against a very clear enemy. So, what is going on is that we did not understand all that. We wanted a role at the lower end. Now, all these things, when you want to fight a modern war, it is not about only weapon systems. It is also about optimizing the weapon system, that is called war concept. And it is also about years of training. It doesn't happen in a jiffy that today you say, okay, I'm buying Rafales, so I become powerful. No, you don't. It is not only Rafales, how do you use the Rafales, how do you use the Rafales with the other systems, and what sort of training you have done, what sort of understanding you have of electronic warfare. You see, these things are important. We saw in Balakot very clearly that the Pakistan Air Force displayed better electronic warfare capabilities. So we should have understood that in a modern war, electronic warfare is very important, because if you can jam the enemy's communication, there is trouble. How do you do the operation if the communication are jammed? I mean, we faced it in 2019, which is why our pilot, our squadron leader, he was made prisoner of war. So we should have learned that lesson. Instead, the Indian Air Force leadership is saying that we should have a role in counter-terror operations, sub-conventional operations. So and see, on top of that, you listen to the present Air Force chief. I actually sympathize with him, Air Chief Marshal AP Singh. He said openly that, look, the DRDO and the HAL, they have not met any of the timelines. Now, on the one hand, you want to do Atmanirbharta at a time when there is a big crisis at hand. Atmanirbharta requires years of
No, but
peace.
Sunny,